The Garden of Broken Promises. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings, where love and revenge intertwine in stories that touch the heart and stir the soul. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from around the world. Your support means everything to us. The Artist's Dream. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the ancient stones of Verona as Elena Rossi stood before her easel, brush in hand, completely lost in her work. Her studio overlooked the gentle curve of the Adige River, where the water sparkled like scattered diamonds beneath the Italian sky. At 28 years old, Elena had built a modest but respected reputation as a portrait artist. Her paintings captured more than faces. They revealed souls. Elena's studio was her sanctuary. Canvases lined the walls, some finished, others waiting patiently for inspiration to strike. The scent of oil paint and turpentine filled the air, a perfume she found more intoxicating than any expensive fragrance. She lived simply, pouring her heart into every brushstroke, believing that true art came from genuine emotion. Her best friend, Sophia, often teased her about being too romantic, too trusting. "Elena, you see the world through rose-colored glasses," Sophia would say with affection. "Not everyone has a pure heart like yours." Elena would simply smile and reply, "If I stop believing in goodness, what's left?" The gallery opening. On a warm evening in September, Elena received an invitation that would change her life forever. The prestigious Galleria d'Arte Moderna was hosting an exhibition featuring emerging Italian artists, and 3 of her portraits had been selected. Elena could hardly contain her excitement as she dressed for the opening. She chose a simple black dress that Sophia insisted made her look elegant and mysterious. The gallery buzzed with conversation, the clink of wine glasses, and appreciative murmurs as guests examined the artwork. Elena stood nervously near her paintings, watching people's reactions. Her work depicted ordinary people in moments of quiet beauty. An elderly woman reading by candlelight, a young father cradling his newborn, a street musician lost in his melody. "These are extraordinary," a deep, smooth voice said behind her. Elena turned to find herself looking into the most striking pair of green eyes she had ever seen. The man before her was tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and his smile revealed teeth so white they could have been in a toothpaste commercial. Everything about him spoke of wealth and refinement. "Thank you," Elena managed, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "I try to capture honest moments." "You've done far more than that," he said, extending his hand. "Alessandro Moretti, I must confess, I came here tonight expecting to be politely bored. Instead, I'm genuinely moved. This woman here," he gestured to the elderly reader. "She reminds me of my grandmother. You've captured something timeless." Elena shook his hand, noticing how warm and confident his grip felt. "Elena Rossi. And thank you. That means more to me than you know." The courtship begins. Alessandro didn't leave her side for the rest of the evening. He asked thoughtful questions about her technique, her inspiration, her dreams. Unlike other wealthy collectors she'd met, who viewed art as mere investment, Alessandro seemed to genuinely appreciate the emotion behind her work. When the gallery closed, he asked if she would join him for coffee. "I know a quiet place near Piazza del Erbe," he said with a smile that made her heart flutter. "Unless you think I'm being too forward?" Elena hesitated for only a moment. Something about Alessandro felt right, felt safe. "Coffee sounds lovely," she agreed. They walked through Verona's ancient streets, their footsteps echoing off medieval walls. Alessandro told her about his work in international business consulting, though he kept the details vague. "Numbers and contracts," he said with a dismissive wave. "Nothing as beautiful as what you create. You bring joy into the world. I just shuffle papers." At the cafe, they talked for hours. Alessandro was charming and attentive, asking about her childhood, her family, her artistic journey. He laughed at her jokes and listened intently to her stories. When Elena mentioned that both her parents had passed away, her mother when she was young, her father just 2 years ago, Alessandro reached across the table and gently squeezed her hand. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "Loss leaves a mark on us all." By the time he walked her home that night, Elena felt as though she'd known Alessandro for years, not hours. At her door, he kissed her hand like a gentleman from another era. "May I see you again?" he asked. "I'd like that," Elena whispered. 3 months of magic. What followed was a romance that felt like something from the movies. Alessandro courted Elena with old-world charm and modern generosity. He brought her flowers every week, not generic roses, but carefully selected bouquets that showed he listened when she talked about her favorite blooms. He took her to intimate restaurants where the owners greeted him by name, to private concerts in ancient churches, to sunrise views from Torre dei Lamberti. They spent weekends exploring the countryside, picnicking in vineyards, visiting small villages where time seemed to have stopped centuries ago. Alessandro photographed Elena constantly, saying he wanted to remember every moment. She painted him too, capturing him in profile as he gazed out at Lake Garda, the wind ruffling his hair. "You make me want to be a better man," Alessandro told her one evening as they watched the sunset from Castel San Pietro. "Before you, life was just business meetings and obligations. You've reminded me what it means to truly live." Elena felt her heart swell with joy. She had fallen deeply, completely in love. Alessandro seemed to feel the same way. He introduced her to his friends, wealthy businessmen who treated her kindly despite her modest background. He talked about the future, about traveling the world together, about the life they would build. Sophia remained cautiously supportive. "He seems wonderful, Elena. Just be careful. We barely know anything about his past." "He's a private person," Elena defended. "Not everyone shares every detail immediately. Besides, I trust him. I feel it in my heart." The proposal in Juliet's garden. 3 months after their first meeting, Alessandro arranged something special. He asked Elena to meet him at Casa di Giulietta, Juliet's house, the famous site that drew lovers from around the world. When Elena arrived at the courtyard beneath the iconic balcony, she found it transformed. Candles flickered in glass holders, rose petals covered the ground, and soft music played from hidden speakers. Alessandro stood in the center, devastatingly handsome in a dark suit, holding a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught in her throat. "Alessandro." "Elena Rossi," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "These past 3 months have been the happiest of my life. You are talented, kind, beautiful, and genuine in a world full of pretense. I cannot imagine my future without you in it." He dropped to one knee, and Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life making you as happy as you've made me?" The ring was stunning, a vintage design with a large diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires. It must have cost a fortune, but Elena barely noticed. All she saw was the man she loved, offering her everything she'd ever dreamed of. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, Alessandro, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply while tourists applauded around them. Elena felt like she was floating, like every romantic story she'd ever read had come true in her own life. "I love you," Alessandro whispered against her hair. "More than I ever thought possible." "I love you too," Elena replied, her heart so full she thought it might burst. The perfect illusion. The following weeks passed in a blur of wedding planning and blissful preparations. Alessandro insisted they wait 6 months to marry, saying he wanted to plan the perfect celebration. Elena agreed, though she would have married him the next day. She spent her mornings painting with renewed inspiration, her afternoons selecting flowers and venues with Sophia, her evenings in Alessandro's arms. Alessandro traveled frequently for business, sometimes for days at a time. "I'm sorry, amore," he would say apologetically. "Once we're married, I'll reduce my travel. I promise." Elena understood. A man as successful as Alessandro had responsibilities. She used the time apart to work on her art and prepare for their future. One detail puzzled her slightly. Alessandro never invited her to his home. "It's temporary corporate housing," he explained. "Soulless and impersonal. I'd rather spend time in your beautiful studio." Elena found this romantic rather than suspicious. Her studio did have more character than any modern apartment. She also noticed that Alessandro was vague about his family. "My parents died young," he told her once. "I have some distant relatives, but we're not close. You and our future family, that's what matters to me now." Elena's tender heart ached for his loneliness. She promised herself she would give him the family and warmth he'd been missing. The accidental discovery. The truth came crashing down on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in December. Alessandro had left his laptop at Elena's studio after a visit the night before. He'd called that morning, asking if he could retrieve it that evening. "I have meetings all day, but I'll stop by around 7, he said. Elena was working on a new painting when the laptop chimed with an incoming video call. Without thinking, acting only out of helpfulness, she opened the computer to decline the call and leave Alessandro a note about it. The name on the screen made her freeze. Chiara, home. Elena stared at the words, her mind racing to find an innocent explanation. Before she could stop herself, before she could think better of it, she answered the call. A beautiful woman appeared on screen, dark-haired and elegant, with tired eyes. Behind her, Elena could see 2 small children playing. The woman's face registered confusion. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said in Italian. "I was trying to reach my husband, Alessandro Moretti. Have I called the wrong number?" The world tilted sideways. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "Your husband," Elena whispered. The woman's confusion deepened. "Yes, is this not his computer? Who are you?" "I'm." Elena's voice broke. "I'm his fiancée." The silence that followed lasted an eternity. Elena watched the color drain from the other woman's face, saw her hand tremble as it rose to her throat. Behind her, a little girl called out, "Mama, who is that?" "Chiara," Elena said, her voice barely audible. "Is that your name?" The woman nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "For 8 years. We have 2 children. Marco is 6, and Lucia is 4. Elena felt as though she were drowning. Her vision blurred with tears. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," Chiara said softly, her own voice thick with emotion. "This is not the first time. But children." She paused, glancing back at them. "I should go. I'm sorry for your pain. I truly am." The screen went black. Elena sat frozen, the engagement ring on her finger suddenly feeling like a shackle. Her chest constricted, making it hard to breathe. Everything, every moment, every word, every promise, had been a lie. The man she loved, the man she'd given her heart to completely, didn't exist. He was a phantom, a role Alessandro had played while his real life continued in Milan. The confrontation. When Alessandro arrived that evening, whistling cheerfully as he entered the studio, he found Elena sitting in darkness, the laptop open before her. "Elena, amore, why are you sitting in the dark?" he asked, reaching for the light switch. "Don't," she said coldly. "Don't call me that. Don't touch anything." He froze, his hand suspended midair. In the dim light from the window, Elena saw his expression change, calculation replacing warmth. "Your wife called," Elena said, her voice eerily calm. "Chiara, she's lovely. Your children are beautiful too." Alessandro's shoulders sagged slightly. For a moment, Elena hoped to see guilt, remorse, shame. Instead, when he spoke, his voice was casual, almost irritated. "I can explain." "Explain what?" Elena stood, fury finally breaking through her shock. "Explain 8 years of marriage? Explain 2 children? Explain the ring on my finger?" "Elena, it's complicated." "No," she screamed, pulling the ring off and throwing it at him. It bounced off his chest and skittered across the floor. "It's actually very simple. You're a liar. Everything about you is a lie." Alessandro's mask slipped entirely. The charming gentleman vanished, replaced by a cold stranger. "What did you expect? You're a naive artist living in a studio apartment. Did you really think someone like me would marry someone like you?" Each word was a dagger. Elena felt her legs weaken. "You were entertainment," Alessandro continued, his tone brutally matter-of-fact. "A pleasant distraction from my real life. You're talented and pretty, but you were never more than that. Surely you understood. You proposed to me," Elena whispered. "You talked about our future, our children, our life together." "I talk about a lot of things," he said with a shrug. "Most people understand the game. I'm sorry you took it seriously." He picked up his laptop, preparing to leave as though they'd merely had a minor disagreement. At the door, he paused. "For what it's worth, Elena, you were more entertaining than most. Your paintings are quite good. You should focus on those instead of romance. You're too soft for love." Then he was gone, the door closing with a quiet click that echoed like thunder in Elena's heart. The breaking. Elena collapsed. She lay on her studio floor, curled into herself, and wept until no more tears would come. The physical pain in her chest was so intense, she wondered if hearts could literally break. She had given Alessandro everything, her trust, her love, her dreams, her innocence. And he had taken it all as though it meant nothing, as though she meant nothing. Sophia found her the next morning, still on the floor, surrounded by crumpled tissues and the shattered pieces of the engagement ring. Without a word, Sophia gathered her friend into her arms and let her cry. "I'm so stupid," Elena sobbed. "You warned me. You said to be careful." "No," Sophia said firmly. "You loved honestly. That's not stupid. He's the monster, not you." But Elena couldn't paint. For the first time in her life, she couldn't create. She stood before her easel day after day, brush in hand, and felt nothing but emptiness. The joy that had fueled her art had been extinguished. Alessandro had taken not just her heart, but her gift. Weeks passed. Elena withdrew from friends, ignored gallery invitations, stopped answering her phone. She existed in a gray fog of grief and humiliation. At night, she dreamed of confronting Alessandro, of making him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused. But what could she do? He had everything: wealth, power, a family. She had nothing but her broken heart and empty canvases. The seed of vengeance. 2 months after the confrontation, Elena forced herself to visit a cafe. She couldn't hide forever. As she sat alone, staring into her untouched cappuccino, a man approached her table. "Excuse me, aren't you Elena Rossi, the artist?" She looked up to see a distinguished man in his 50s, gray-haired and well-dressed, with kind eyes that held deep sadness. "I am," she said quietly. "I'm Marco Santini. I hope I'm not disturbing you, but I'm an admirer of your work. I bought one of your paintings last year, The Street Musician. It hangs in my office." Despite her depression, Elena felt a flicker of warmth. "Thank you. That means a great deal. May I sit for a moment?" At her nod, he settled across from her. "I don't mean to pry, but you seem troubled. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe I know why." "Alessandro Moretti." Elena's eyes widened in shock. "How did you?" "I recognized your ring before you threw it," Marco said gently. "I was dining across the restaurant the night he proposed to you in Juliet's garden. And I know Alessandro. Or rather, I knew him. He was my business partner once, before he destroyed me." Elena leaned forward, her heart beginning to pound. "What do you mean?" Marco's expression hardened. 5 years ago, Alessandro and I built a consulting firm together. We were like brothers. Then I discovered he was embezzling from our clients, using shell companies to hide money. When I confronted him, he turned everything around, made it look like I was the guilty one. I lost everything: my reputation, my business, nearly my family. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena asked, though something dark was stirring in her chest. "Because I've spent 5 years looking for a way to expose him, to get justice. But Alessandro is careful, protected. He has lawyers, connections, power." Marco paused, his eyes meeting hers intently. "But now he's made a mistake. He hurt someone who has nothing to lose and every reason to want revenge. Someone who can get close to him in ways I never could." Elena's mind raced. The pain in her chest transformed into something else, something harder and colder. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asked. Marco smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. "I'm suggesting that perhaps we can help each other. You want to make Alessandro pay for what he did to you. I want to make him pay for what he did to me. Together, we might actually succeed." Elena sat back, her hands trembling. Everything inside her screamed that this was wrong, that revenge wouldn't heal her wounds. But the darker part, the part that still woke up crying, that still felt the phantom weight of his betrayal crushing her chest, whispered something different. "Tell me more," she said. As Marco began to outline the possibilities, Elena felt the first spark of something she hadn't felt in months. Not joy, not peace, but purpose. If she couldn't create beauty anymore, perhaps she could create justice. Or perhaps something darker. The garden of broken promises had planted new seeds, and what grew from betrayal was rarely beautiful. But it was always powerful. And Elena Rossi was done being powerless. The web of deception. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. If you're just joining us, make sure to watch part 1 first to understand Elena's heartbreaking journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps these stories alive. 6 months of transformation. 6 months had passed since that fateful meeting with Marco Santini in the cafe. The Elena Rossi who now stood before her bathroom mirror was almost unrecognizable from the broken woman who had cried on her studio floor. Her eyes, once soft and trusting, now held a steely determination. She had lost weight, making her features sharper, more striking. Her hair, previously worn long and loose, was now cut into an elegant bob that framed her face with sophisticated precision. But the most significant change was invisible. The gentle heart that had once seen only goodness in people had been forged into something harder, more calculated. Elena had spent these months transforming herself from victim to strategist, from artist to architect of revenge. Her studio had changed too. One wall was now covered with photographs, documents, and notes connected by red string like a detective's investigation board. Alessandro's face stared back at her from multiple angles, at business conferences, charity galas, family outings with Chiara and the children. Elena had studied him obsessively, learning his patterns, his habits, his weaknesses. Marco had been her teacher in this dark education. He had shown her how to research without leaving traces, how to gather information through public records and social media, how to think strategically rather than emotionally. But more importantly, he had given her something to focus on besides her pain. Knowledge is power, Marco told her during one of their weekly meetings at his discreet office outside the city. Alessandro thinks he's untouchable because he's always been smarter than everyone around him. But intelligence without conscience creates blind spots. And we're going to exploit every single one. Elena learned that Alessandro's consulting firm, Moretti International, operated in the gray areas of business law. He helped wealthy clients move money through offshore accounts, advised on tax strategies that bordered on evasion, and facilitated deals that looked legitimate on paper but hid darker truths beneath. He's been doing this for years, Marco explained, spreading documents across his desk. But he's careful. Everything has just enough legal cover to make prosecution difficult. We need concrete evidence, and we need it directly from him. How? Elena asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Marco looked at her seriously. He has to trust you again. He has to let you close enough to see behind the curtain. The thought of facing Alessandro again made Elena's stomach turn. But beneath the revulsion was something stronger, a burning need to make him pay, not just for what he'd done to her, but for his wife, his children, and all the other victims of his casual cruelty. I can do it, Elena said firmly. Tell me what I need to know. The calculated encounter. Elena's opportunity came at the annual Verona Arts Festival in late spring. She knew from her research that Alessandro attended every year, using the event to network with wealthy potential clients who appreciated culture and sophistication. This year, Elena was exhibiting again, her first public showing since the breakup. She had forced herself to paint again, channeling her darkness into her art. Her new work was different from before. Where her earlier paintings had captured gentle moments of beauty, these new pieces explored shadows, complexity, and hidden depths. Critics called them haunting and profound. They had no idea how much of her wounded soul she'd poured onto those canvases. Elena wore a stunning emerald dress that hugged her new, slimmer figure. Her makeup was perfect, her demeanor confident. She looked like a woman who had survived heartbreak and emerged stronger, which was partly true. What observers couldn't see was the rapid beating of her heart as she scanned the crowd for Alessandro's face. She spotted him near the sculpture exhibit, laughing with a group of well-dressed businessmen. He looked exactly the same, handsome, charming, completely at ease. For a moment, Elena's resolve wavered. Then she remembered his cruel words, "You were entertainment. You were never more than that." Her spine straightened. She turned her back to him deliberately, focusing her attention on a young couple admiring one of her paintings. "The artist captures something raw here," the woman was saying. "You can feel the emotion." "That's because pain is honest," Elena said, approaching them with a warm smile. "Thank you for appreciating the work." They chatted briefly, and Elena felt Alessandro's eyes on her before she saw him. She had planned this perfectly. Appear uninterested, let him come to her. Men like Alessandro couldn't resist a challenge, especially from a woman who had once adored him. "Elena," his voice came from behind her, smooth as expensive whiskey. "I heard you were exhibiting. The new work is powerful." She turned slowly, her face carefully neutral. Alessandro. Hello. Up close. She searched his expression for any sign of guilt or remorse. There was none, only curiosity and perhaps a hint of desire. She disgusted herself by recognizing the attraction she still felt, but she channeled it into her performance. You look well, he said, his green eyes traveling over her new appearance with obvious appreciation. Different. I am different, Elena replied coolly. Heartbreak tends to change people. Elena, about what happened. It's in the past, she interrupted, her tone light and almost dismissive. We were both playing roles, I think. I was naive, and you were, well, being yourself. No hard feelings. This clearly wasn't the reaction Alessandro had expected. His eyebrows raised slightly. No hard feelings? Elena shrugged elegantly. I'm nearly 30, Alessandro. It was time I grew up and understood how the world really works. You taught me that. In a way, I should thank you. She watched him process this, saw the flicker of confusion mixed with intrigue. This was the key. Make him believe she had become someone more like him. Someone who understood that emotion was weakness and manipulation was simply how sophisticated people operated. You've changed more than I realized, Alessandro said slowly. Would you have dinner with me? I'd like to hear about this transformation. Elena pretended to consider, letting silence build between them. I don't think that's wise, Alessandro. Your wife, Chiara, and I have an understanding, he said smoothly, the lie flowing effortlessly. We maintain appearances for the children, but we live separate lives. Surely you've matured enough to understand such arrangements. There it was, the same manipulative charm, the same justifications. Elena felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her expression thoughtful. Perhaps one dinner, she said finally, but somewhere public. I'm not that changed. Alessandro smiled, and Elena recognized it as the smile of a predator who thinks he's won. Of course, I'll call you. As he walked away, Elena released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Sophia appeared at her elbow moments later, having watched the entire exchange from across the room. Are you okay? Sophia whispered urgently. I saw you talking to him. I'm fine, Elena assured her friend. Better than fine. The plan is working. Sophia gripped her arm. Elena, I'm worried about you. This isn't who you are. Revenge won't heal you. Maybe not, Elena admitted. But justice might. And if I can stop him from hurting anyone else, isn't that worth something? Sophia looked troubled but said nothing more. She had argued against this plan from the beginning, warning Elena that dancing with the devil would only burn her. But Elena had made her choice. The seduction game. The dinner happened 3 days later at an upscale restaurant overlooking the Arena di Verona. Alessandro was at his most charming, and Elena played her part perfectly, a woman who had learned to protect her heart by becoming as calculating as the man who broke it. I underestimated you, Alessandro said over wine. Most women in your position would have fallen apart permanently, but you've risen from it. That takes strength. Or perhaps it just takes finally seeing reality clearly, Elena replied. You showed me that romance is a transaction. Everyone wants something. The only question is whether you're honest about it. Alessandro leaned back, studying her with new interest. That's a remarkably mature perspective. What do you want, Elena? Success, she said simply. Recognition. Financial security. I'm tired of being a struggling artist hoping for gallery commissions. I want to build something real. This was the crucial moment. Alessandro respected ambition, especially when divorced from sentiment. Elena had crafted this persona carefully with Marco's guidance. A woman who had shed her idealism and now sought practical advancement. I might be able to help with that, Alessandro said slowly. I have connections in the art world, collectors who invest in emerging talent. But more than that, I work with people who understand how to build wealth properly. You mean legally? Elena asked with a slight, knowing smile. Alessandro returned the smile. I mean intelligently. The law is complicated, full of gray areas. Smart people know how to navigate those areas. Over the following weeks, Alessandro courted Elena again, but this time the dynamic was different. He treated her as an equal rather than a naive romantic. He introduced her to his world, expensive restaurants, private clubs, networking events where wealthy people spoke in careful code about moving money and minimizing tax obligations. Elena played the role of fascinated student, asking intelligent questions and expressing admiration for Alessandro's business acumen. She let him believe she was becoming someone who could eventually be a real partner, someone who understood his world and accepted its moral compromises. "You've really changed," Alessandro told her one evening as they walked along the Adige River. The old Elena would have judged all of this. "The old Elena was a child," Elena replied. "She believed in fairy tales. I prefer reality now." What Alessandro didn't know was that Elena was recording many of their conversations. The small device hidden in her designer handbag, purchased with Marco's money, captured everything. Each time Alessandro explained a questionable business practice or bragged about outmaneuvering tax authorities, Elena added to her growing collection of evidence. The investment trap. 2 months into their renewed relationship, Alessandro presented Elena with an opportunity that he claimed would make her financially independent. "I'm putting together an investment group for a real estate development in Croatia," he explained over dinner at his favorite restaurant. "Luxury vacation properties targeting wealthy Europeans. The returns will be substantial." "How substantial?" Elena asked, playing the part of interested investor. 30 to 40% annually, minimum. "But I'm only offering this to a select group. People I trust, people who understand how to keep business arrangements discreet." Elena had learned enough from Marco to understand what Alessandro was really offering: a money laundering scheme disguised as legitimate real estate investment. The profits would come from washing dirty money through the project, not from actual property sales. "It sounds interesting," Elena said carefully. "But I need to see the documentation, understand the structure." "Of course," Alessandro agreed. "I'll have my lawyer prepare a prospectus for you. Though I should mention, there's a limited window. We're finalizing the investor group this month." This was exactly what Elena and Marco had been waiting for: a chance to get inside one of Alessandro's schemes with documentation, contracts, and paper trails. That evening, she met Marco at his office to share the news. "This is it," Marco said, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "If we can get you into this deal with proper evidence of what it really is, we can expose his entire operation." "How much money do I need to invest to make it credible?" Elena asked. Marco hesitated. "At least 50,000 euros, probably more. I can provide it, but Elena, you need to understand. If this goes wrong, you'll be implicated too. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" Elena thought about Chiara's tired eyes on that video call, about Alessandro's cruel dismissal of their relationship, about all the other people he had used and discarded. "I'm certain," she said firmly. "Let's do this." Meeting Chiara. As Elena became more deeply involved in Alessandro's world, she made a decision that Marco advised against but that her conscience demanded. She reached out to Chiara. The meeting happened at a quiet cafe in Milan, far from anywhere Alessandro might frequent. When Chiara arrived, Elena was struck again by how lovely she was and how sad. The woman moved with the careful grace of someone accustomed to hiding pain. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Elena said softly as Chiara sat down. "I almost didn't come," Chiara admitted. "But I've thought about you often since that video call. I wanted to tell you again that I'm sorry for what my husband did to you." "You have nothing to apologize for," Elena said firmly. "You're his victim too." Chiara's eyes filled with tears. "For 8 years, I've known about the other women. I've known and stayed because of Marco and Lucia, because leaving felt impossible. Alessandro controls everything: the money, the house, even access to the children. He's made sure I'm trapped." As Chiara spoke, Elena learned the full extent of Alessandro's cruelty. He was emotionally abusive to his wife, controlling her every movement, limiting her contact with family and friends. He used the children as leverage, threatening that if Chiara ever left, he would use his resources to ensure she never saw them again. "There have been so many women," Chiara whispered. "You're just the first who confronted me directly. The others, I don't know if they knew about me or not." Alessandro keeps his worlds very separate. "What if I told you there might be a way out?" Elena asked carefully. "Not just for you, but truly out. With your children, with resources, with freedom?" Chiara looked up sharply. "How?" Elena explained carefully, leaving out certain details for Chiara's protection. She told her about the evidence being gathered, about Alessandro's illegal business practices, about the plan to expose him in a way that would strip away his power and resources. "When he falls, you could leave," Elena said. With proper legal representation, you could get custody of your children and a fair settlement. He wouldn't have the power to threaten you anymore. But this is dangerous, Chiara said, fear evident in her voice. Alessandro is vengeful. If he discovered you were working against him, he won't, Elena assured her, with more confidence than she felt. But I need to know, if this works, will you have the courage to leave? To testify if necessary about his financial arrangements, the money he's hidden from authorities? Chiara was silent for a long moment, staring at her wedding ring. Then she looked up, and Elena saw something new in her eyes. Not fear, but a spark of hope. Yes, Chiara said quietly but firmly. For my children, for the life I should have had, yes. Tell me what you need from me. The gathering evidence. Over the next month, Elena became deeply entangled in Alessandro's investment scheme. She attended meetings with the development team in Croatia, actually a front for the money laundering operation. She reviewed contracts filled with intentionally confusing language designed to obscure the real flow of money. She met other investors, some who seemed genuinely fooled by the scheme, others who clearly understood exactly what they were participating in. Throughout it all, Elena documented everything. She photographed documents when no one was watching, recorded conversations, and kept detailed notes of every meeting. Marco taught her how to do this carefully, how to avoid suspicion while gathering the evidence they needed. But the strain was taking its toll. Elena found herself having nightmares where Alessandro discovered her betrayal. She jumped at sudden noises, constantly worried that she'd made a mistake that would expose her. The lines between her real self and the character she was playing began to blur.